Great. So, thanks for all of you joining today's discussion session. There's a few things that I would like to make you aware of before we're heading into the discussion on communications and marketing. So, first of all, I said it when the first people joined. Could you please change your name so that people can see where you're located, in which country? So it says your name and then give the location where you are. I think that would be much appreciated. Then also, I'm aware since we had the induction meeting, some people had problems in accessing the material online. I hope that all of you have now resolved this, and thanks to our colleague Will, who has looked into this when there were some different email addresses in our system. So I hope everybody now has access to the module material. If not, please let me know urgently that we can look into this. Then one last thing, I know that we all speak a number of languages and our smallest common denominator is English. And some might feel more or less comfortable in speaking English or listening to conversations in English. So we have a number of facilitators here on the call, and I will introduce them in a moment. So if you are okay in participating in an English discussion, small group session, please join one of the English discussion sessions. We are also planning on having one in Spanish and see how it goes. It's our first discussion session today, and we will try to be as inclusive as possible, but clearly you might also understand that there's limitations to support. And I know that some of you, as I said, might not be so comfortable in speaking English, but be aware of this. There's many people here who are speaking English as a second or third or perhaps fourth language. So we will manage in being really patient with each other and trying to speak slowly. So, as the next point, I would like, first of all, to welcome Freya, our subject matter expert on the call. Freya, can you wave so that we can see where you are? So, Freya is our head of marketing and communications, and some of you may have spoken to Freya in the past directly. And Freya is really the go-to person on any questions on marketing and communications. But as we are a fairly big group in this cohort of the leadership program, we also have a number of facilitators who are volunteering to help us running this session. And on my screen, I can see there's Jane from Ireland. Jane, can you give it a wave? So Jane is here. Jane was on the most recent leadership program. Thanks for being here and supporting this group as a facilitator. Then we have Carmen Suarez. Carmen, can you wave, please, so that people can see where you are? Thanks. And Carmen will be facilitating the discussion session in Spanish. And then we have support from my colleague Pablo, and I can see that participants on two screens for me. Pablo, can you wave? I can't see you. Where are you? Pablo, are you online? Ah, here. Sorry, sorry.
I am online. Happy
Sorry, I can only
to
see so many tiles at the same time on this Zoom call. Thanks, thanks. So Pablo is also there and will facilitate one of the small group sessions. So please bear with us. We're trying to find the best way to allow you for really conversations in smaller groups, because clearly when you've got how many people are online, 33 at the moment, there's no discussion really possible. So this is why we go into small groups. And to make this happen, this is Gokul. Also, Gokul, can you wave here? So Gokul is the person who's putting you all into the small groups and helping from an administrative side so that you all hopefully have a good experience in these discussion sessions. So that's that for now. Are there any questions on the material that was shared as part of the first module? If there's anything, please put up your hand that we can address this. Okay, it seems that there are no questions at this point. Hopefully there will be some queries in the small group sessions that we can then bring together. So then I would say we will go into these, as we said, into these small groups. We have about 7 people per group. Some might be a bit smaller, some might be a bit bigger. So we will distribute Freya, Pablo, Jane, Carmen, and myself split into the different groups. We will be about 25 minutes in this breakout room. And I would like to ask you, the facilitators, to identify a speaker from your group who will then give us a summary. Because when we're recording the session, only what is said in this big plenum will be recorded, and everything that is being discussed in the small groups is not recorded. So it's helpful to have a very short 1-minute summary from each breakout session, and it's helpful to have one spokesperson for this breakout session. The questions you are invited to explore during this first breakout are thinking about the recent conversation that you had, communication you had as part of your professional role and how it went. Perhaps it went perfectly, or perhaps there were some things that there were some misunderstandings or some other things that didn't go that well. And then with the insights from the module material, is there anything that you would do differently? And really have a conversation within your small group about this topic. You should all hopefully have the session outline in front of you so that you can refer back to the question. Okay, so Gokul, I don't know where we are, how we are doing. Are we ready to go out into small groups?
Yes, I'll open the rooms. Everyone can choose which room they want to go into, and there's a separate room for Spanish. So
Okay, and if there's 2 facilitators in one room, we just leave and go to another room. Super,
yeah,
thank you, Gokul.
put everyone in
Okay,
the room, so that's fine. Yeah.
okay, then see you. You already are okay. Okay, very good. Then see you in a moment. Recording, so I don't. Okay, super. Thank you. So I hope you had constructive discussions and sharing of your examples in the small groups, and you have identified a speaker for your group. And let's try to keep this really high level and summarizing the main points that were brought up. I would like to hand over, starting off with Wendy. She's giving a summary from our small group discussion.
Thank you. We came up with a number of points. One was around the importance of when to communicate. So the timing is really important. Like as an example, setting up communications on a Friday is often a bad idea. So communicate at an optimal time in advance. When you're sending written communication, make sure that you have the most important information at the top. Target the group to your target group and avoid multiple action points. Another key point was if you're looking at coordinating how you coordinate communication. So as an example, if you've got a number of members and you're trying to get across an important issue, perhaps a government initiative. It's making sure that you have adequate time to communicate that message across your membership and managing expectations. Another one was where you're trying to build engagement. So as an example with volunteers, it's the importance of ensuring that they're appreciated. Spending time might be, yeah, to create that encouragement, might be using motivational tools like awards, etc. So it's that style. What else? The other thing is, again, if you're working with a group of people, it's using metrics. So like RACI, so who's responsible, who's accountable. So having things clearly set out initially in terms of communicating can help to avoid conflict and to make it more effective. We had another volunteer example, which again was just talking about the importance of motivational communication, how to be inspirational, increasing engagement, making sure your communication is honest and has integrity. We talked a little bit about just the actual strategy. So, you know, like with our larger organizations, you know, having a communications plan or strategy. So ensuring that we're not overwhelming with things like social media. So yeah, having a clear plan around that. And then another one was more seeking feedback. So it's kind of like you might be doing surveys, or if you've got something really important or constitutional change, it's ensuring that you're getting that, gathering information to make your communication more pointed and effective. And that's what we had.
Great, thank you, Wendy. Jane, from your group, who is feeding back?
Julian.
Okay, Julian, please go ahead.
Hey everyone. Yeah, so we we had a chat also about this the topic, and we came up with some suggestions. And the first one was the importance of culture and how different cultures and different people from different cultures actually react to communication and how they respond and their responsiveness. That was something we discussed upon, and the importance of having a clear strategy when you communicate to overcome some of the communication barriers. So the message needs to be, of course, clear and timely. So one of our colleagues said that, yeah, when you are, for example, you want to communicate something impactful, and you need to take into account workload and the receiver's schedule, you need to take time in advance to send it and maybe repeat it. So it is, and maybe put also a sort of, when you expect the message to be replied or responded, that might help. It needs to be consistent. Of course, there's more towards branding and towards communication to the world too, from external stakeholders. And when one of our colleagues said about something about organizing a Congress, that there was a little bit of a mismatch in communication between the different sponsors and the organizing institution, because it was not clear, for example, the sponsors package. So it needs to be very clear, for example, what you're offering, and it might help also if you see that there is no pickup from what you're saying, so you don't have enough replies. You can always, for example, ask them to meet up online or physically, if it's possible, to discuss the situation a bit more in detail, and it has usually a tendency to provide more compliancy than just sending an email, for example. What else? Yeah, I think that was a little bit everything, and trying to keep it
Yes, thank you, Julian. So I think we also, or I need to learn with now a bigger group of this leadership program on how we can really manage feedback and be able to give you a platform to feedback without, having to expand our discussion session to 2 hours. So I would like to invite, I know that there is still Freya's group and Carmen and Pablo's group to feedback. Perhaps what like to ask Carmen for the group on who's feeding back from the Spanish-speaking group, and then we focus on Freya's and Pablo's group for the next round of feedback. So Carmen, I know you facilitated the Spanish-speaking group. Who's the spokesperson, or what are your kind of main points you would like to share?
It's Noemi. So
Noemi,
she's
please.
going to share briefly what we
Yes.
spoke about.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Noemi, please go ahead.
Okay, I begin.
Yes.
First of all, I have to ask you about my English, because it's not it's not better, but I will try to speak as I can. I am the Association of Uruguay president since April 24. But I worked a lot before at the association too. In our group, I were Marcela from Chile and me, but Marcela come in later, so I don't have so much information about Chile. Just that they worked with the communication in politics, in some problems from Chile. In our country, what I was talking with Carmen is about the history in this time, in this year, when we arrived to the association, we were a big chaos, some chaos at the association with the number of associated, economy, administration, and wasn't a good activity. And when we went to the street to the work and walk and talk with our colleagues, all of them tell us what is AFU, what is for AFU. So we worked to get strange identity. So we worked with the communication, and I understand that all of that we did was about intuitive work. When I hear Freya videos, I saw that it's important the planification to get some order, but also with working about intuitive work, it was good it was good. We increased from 280 associated to 360 now. In June, when the census, we have 340, something like this. I don't remember exactly, but we are every day getting more associated. And some important work that we did is work with the students, with the universities. So now they are the most important increasing group is about students.
Great. Thank you, Naomi. I think that's really helpful what you said, this mix of having a structured communication plan and what you called intuitive. So I think this is also something that came up, at least also in our group, about the plans, and it's clearly easier when you have a formal person who's responsible for communication, and the smaller the organization and the more distributed the responsibilities are, it doesn't get easier. So thanks for sharing your examples. I'm conscious of time. I think let's go into the second breakout room, which Gokul, we will keep the same allocation to groups to not make it too difficult this time. And it is really that you are invited to talk about communication strategies and thinking about a campaign that you may have had as part of your organizational work, and how this worked and what strengths and weaknesses were of that campaign. So again, let's have 20 minutes, and then we will hear back from Freya's and Pablo's group afterwards for feedback. Okay, on my screen, I tried to find Gokul. Are we ready to go out into the breakout rooms?
Yes.
Okay, super. Thank you. So welcome back to our main group, and thanks for your patience. It is for us also a new experience, as I said earlier, working with a bigger group, and we try to be as inclusive as possible. So I would say let's go to Pablo's group first, and then Freya for your group to wrap up, and then perhaps add a few thoughts. So Pablo, who's the speaker for your group?
Pablo had to leave, Birgit, so I'm
okay, super.
I've
Catherine,
taken
please.
over.
Yes,
I've
please
taken
go
over
ahead.
World Physiotherapy, and I'm the spokesperson.
Okay, super. Then go ahead, Catherine.
So our group was talking about different campaigns, and especially some of the challenges in terms of targeting campaigns at trying to get more members. So for example, it can be difficult to physically travel to different university sites to try to speak to students to get them to convert into memberships of an organisation. So we were talking about having really targeted appearances, or being able to really target that group. For example, maybe even presenting at a graduation ceremony so that you've got that 100% attendance. Rakaya from Trinidad was talking about trying to get more participation from members. So out of maybe 200 physios in the country, only 25 to 30 participate. So that can mean that there's a lot of work for a small number of people to do. So they've tried things like emails, social media and surveys to try and get their members all together in one place. And from Bhutan, they were talking about members, you train them and you get them to join, but then they travel abroad. So you have that attrition of members as well. Patrick from Tanzania was talking about an awareness campaign that they did for World Physiotherapy Day this year on healthy aging, and how they utilised a whole lot of different media, for example, posters, radios, TV. They had physios going out talking about what physiotherapy is, and that everyone really enjoyed being part of it. So in the end, they were actually able to get face-to-face contact with 400 patients, which was really successful. So we were talking about how important it is when you're a volunteer and working hard and giving up your time, that you have to really love what you're doing. And the campaign that I talked about from Australia was one that we did that was aimed at consumers, called Make Your Best Move Yet. So it was short clips of people in real life situations, maybe returning to work after an injury, but also showing them in the context of interacting with their family at home while they were recovering from some kind of injury as well. So that's what our group talked about.
Super. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing your examples. Freya, who's the spokesperson from your group?
It's Gillian.
Okay, Gillian, please go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, so in our group, we spoke about this was a few different kind of campaigns and the strategies that were implemented with those campaigns. And then we also spoke about just some of the difficulties with kind of, I suppose, trying to have active campaigns in areas of unrest. So some of the campaigns were kind of higher level, like looking at implementing and kind of challenging constitutional law. Some were looking at translation of PT materials into another language, and then disseminating that out to the wider PT group. Looking at kind of changing scope of practice as well, and kind of how to communicate that and get feedback from members. So I suppose the approaches, and I suppose the common themes of the approaches were having kind of clear communication, but kind of forward planning of that communication as well. So one of the campaigns was about a kind of a walk around World Physio Day, and planning that campaign months in advance with different sort of media, so radio jingles, YouTube, being online, having that presence. But then also, having this planned out campaign, and then, the week before the event, people still going, oh, this is the first time we've heard of this. You see lots of nods there. So, like, yes, it's really, really important to have that planning and that forward thinking, but there will always be those people that you just don't meet. You just can't find them. Talking about, I suppose, different cohorts with communication as well. So kind of strategies around, I suppose, generational differences. So someone spoke about kind of the kind of quite a large population of younger physiotherapists who are graduating, and trying to reach them and how you reach them. And I suppose looking at maybe linking in at when they're students or when they're just qualified, and seeing how they want to be communicated to. But obviously, yes, having that generational gap, because obviously you can have those very young physios, and then I've heard of there recently in Ireland, we have a physio who is 82 years old and still working. And so that span of age, and trying to meet everyone and get the communications across them, it is quite a challenge. As I said, we spoke about one of the physios in our group said that they can't have active campaigns at the moment because of just civil unrest in the country, that it would draw too much attention to them. But they're kind of looking at other ways to, I suppose, maybe promote and bring awareness to the profession still, and having kind of public awareness campaigns. During kind of an earthquake in March of this year, the society was able to kind of get physios together to help out with basic rehabilitation needs and assistive devices and things like that. So although not an active campaign, it is that public awareness piece and still raising the profile of physiotherapy. Some of the weaknesses that kind of came up, which I've mentioned, is of like, you know, difficulty with that big age generational gaps with the information that we're sending out. Difficult to manage in a volunteer capacity as well. So obviously, you know, every society is very different. I know in Ireland we have a communications, you know, an employed communications person. Monique in South Africa said that that's something they're actually looking at doing now, because they found it very, very difficult to manage the volume of work, I suppose, in a volunteer capacity, particularly around that marketing communications. And I suppose one of the weaknesses, yes, it's a lot of work, but then obviously identifying the need for someone to be employed in that position. Something else that came up as well is just the kind of a weakness in some of the campaigns is like a lack of follow-up. So that sustained follow-up, you know, that we send out our campaigns or our messages, but then we're not feeding back to our societies or our physios about the impact of those campaigns. So I think that is everything.
Great. Thank you, Gillian, for sharing your points. And when you said ideally having a communication person employed, I think this is many on this call would be dreaming of that for their organization. So yes, in an ideal world. So Freya, I would like to hand over to you. First of all, from what you've heard from today's discussions and feedback, your thoughts from an communications expert perspective, and then perhaps we have another couple of minutes on touching about the AI topic that is on the agenda. Please, over to you, Freya.
Thank you, Birgit. I want to thank everybody for sharing their experiences. I find it really heartening to hear the range of activities that people are involved in, and the opportunities that people have created, the successes of communications activity, and also where things have not gone so well, because I think that's where we can really learn, and being honest with each other about where there have been shortcomings. And I will spend a lot of time talking about things that haven't gone well from a communications point of view for Well Physiotherapy, and from previous roles. I've got lots of experience of that, and it's always been, I've always looked at it and thought, like, okay, well, that didn't go so well. What would I do differently next time? Because I think that for me is the biggest learning, and it's really interesting to hear, the experiences that you have had, and the learnings as well. Talking about planning, talking about expectations, setting expectations for the group that you're trying to communicate with, and also making that group aware of what the expectations that you have, what resources are available to you if you're operating in volunteer capacity. So I think it's good to have those honest conversations, and I would encourage you to share with each other as much as possible as you go through the leadership program about what has worked and what you would do differently next time. And lots of people have tried things, so it's good to borrow from each other as well. I would really encourage you to do that. So thank you for sharing. If I could talk a little bit about AI, so I'm sure that this is a big topic for lots of people, in lots of for lots of reasons. I wanted to talk about it in terms of communication, because I think AI and the different platforms that are available can be really powerful in terms of communication, because you can ask an AI platform to come up with a communication strategy. You can ask it to write a news story for you. You can ask it to write social media posts for multiple different platforms. So you can ask it to write a speech, whatever it is that you want it to do from a communications point of view. And you can ask it to do lots of other things as well. But from a communications point of view, it is really powerful, and it can be a really powerful tool. And I use it. You know, I will be honest about that. I use AI sometimes if I've got to draft something, if I'm being given a big briefing paper and somebody says, okay, we've got a 50-page briefing paper here. We need a news story and I've got to get it down to 350 words. I will ask AI to do that for me. What I will then do is I will then look at what AI has created for me, and I will look at it from the point of view of what is the language that the organization uses. Because it's really important that whatever you put out, whatever communications you put out, that they have the brand of your organization and they have the voice of your organization. Because AI is coming from a particular part of the world with particular language, and it will continue to replicate that language. So it may not be the language of your organization. So it's really important to be mindful of that. I'll give you another example of how I have used AI for this particular program. So the videos, the 3 videos that I recorded. So I recorded them. I recorded those videos a couple of years ago for an earlier version of this program. And Birgit said to me in preparation for this, okay, I think those videos, they need to be refreshed. So I had a look at them and I thought, yes, they do. They're a bit long. I need to make some changes. What I did was I took the transcript of those, the English language transcript, and I put it through AI and I said, come up with a script for a 10-minute video. And it did. It created me the scripts. Again, I looked at those scripts and thought, yeah, that's not actually what I would say. That's not quite right. So I kind of tweaked it a little bit, but it came up with 3 what I think are very concise, very on point scripts, which I was then able to use to record the videos that appear as part of this program. So, you know, that I've given you 2 examples there of how I've used AI or how I would use AI to help me in my work. But I would say, play with it, try it, see if it's right for you, because it may not be right for everybody, and be aware of what some of the limitations are. That AI is predominantly used in certain parts of the world, so the language and the approach and the phrases may reflect that part of the world and may not reflect the part of the world that you're from. So just be mindful of that, and, you know, use it, play with it, and then look at what it might generate and think, is that right for you? And it may not be. I've done that as well. I've used AI and then looked at what it's produced and thought, yeah, I don't like that. I'm not going to use it. So yeah, I would say, start playing with it and see how it goes.
Thank you, Freya. And I know that the time allocated to this topic has been reduced. Thanks for addressing some of the points, some of the thoughts on AI and using it as part of your communication work. So we're coming to the end of this discussion session. We always try to start in time. We always try to finish in time as much as we can. I know we could have easily had another hour or 2 or 3 of discussions on this topic. So first of all, I want to thank you all for contributing to these discussions and sharing your example, because this is where the leadership program benefits from, that you share your experiences with your peers in these discussion sessions. So before wrapping up, what we do, I will share the link to the recording for today's session, and particularly for those, first of all, who were not here, but then also for people who perhaps didn't catch everything, because we all have different accents and different speaking speeds. There will be transcripts in English, Spanish, and French will be added to the website, so that you can read up and skim through the recording if there's anything there that I didn't really catch that aspect. So that's a way for us to trying to be language inclusive. So then what I also wanted to bring up is the topic of the reflective diary, which I briefly mentioned in the induction sessions. So can't remember whether I shared this already with you, but I will definitely do in the follow-up email of today's session. This is just an Excel spreadsheet with very basic questions on each of the module on helping you to reflect on what you've learned, what you've heard, on your experiences with the material. And this reflective diary needs to be sent in by the end of the program, and I would really encourage you to fill it in as you go along, because now the communication content is very fresh in your mind, rather than leaving it at the end and then in 9 or 10 months time looking and saying, oh, what was the discussion again about, and what was. So it is helpful to really have it as a kind of side document going through the program and adding your thoughts and your reflections as you go along. Then I think what you experience today is what we do for each module. There's always a section that is called Bringing Your Learning to Life. And this is where we put a few questions in that will then be explored at the discussion session. Again, going forward, I think learning as we go along, we might change some of the questions and also the format to make sure that you really have an opportunity to share with your peers, and you also have an opportunity to feedback to the main group. So the next module is on project planning and project management, which is another kind of foundation module, as you could say, because everything that you do involves some sort of plan and some sort of project. So this is the next module. I will send a follow-up email in the coming days as soon as the module is available for you, so that you can watch the videos, look into the resources and the additional information. And then we have our next discussion session early December. So again, in the meantime, if you've got any questions, any concerns, any problems with the content, let me know and we will look into this. Thanks a lot, Freya. Thanks a lot, Jane, Carmen, Pablo, Gokul, for your help facilitating the discussions. And thank you to all of you for sharing your examples. So have a good day, have a good night, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.